Hello, ladies, welcome. We're going to wait a few minutes and get started around 9:05. We're going to let everyone get in. Welcome, everybody. We're going to wait a few minutes. We're going to wait until about 9:05 and we'll get started about 9:05. Welcome, everyone. We're going to wait a few more minutes. Almost there. 9:05, we'll get rolling. Hi, everybody. Hello. I see some familiar names. So excited. Hello. Good evening from Texas. Hi, Mochas. This is great. We're still going to wait a few more moments. We'll get rolling about 9:05 still. Hello from Boston. Hi, everybody. This is so exciting. Tiffany, hey. All right, the numbers are growing. We're almost there. We'll get started in just a moment. Yes, please tell us where you're tuning in from in the chat box. We want to hear where you're from. Kim. Awesome. Great. Love it. All across the country. Love it. I love the Phoenix Sun. New Jersey. My New Jersey's here. This is wonderful. Oh, this is great. Hi, Mindy. Welcome, everybody. We're going to get rolling in just a moment. Folks are still joining. Hi, everyone. Hello. Those of you all who have young children, I hope your kids are settled in bed and you can relax and enjoy the rest of the evening. So excited to have you all here. Lakeisha, they're in bed at 8:30. I love it. That was years ago for me, for my kids. They go to bed whenever they feel like it now. Exactly. Daddy can do it. All right. It is 9:05. There are still folks joining, but I think we should get rolling. We're going to go ahead and get rolling. Everybody there? Great. All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. We are so excited to have you here. This is a unique and very special collaboration, and we're thrilled that you've joined us tonight. My name is Kuae Mattox, and I'm the National President of Mocha Moms. We'd like to welcome you to our session tonight on the Black Relaunchers perspective that we are co-hosting with iRelaunch. Now, as many of you all know, Mocha Moms is a national nonprofit founded in 1997 that provides sisterhood, support, and service for mothers of color. Our mission is to support, inspire, educate, and advocate for mothers of color through strengthening marriages and families, promoting self-care, strong educational foundations, volunteerism, and activism. We have 1,500 members on the ground and 60 chapters in 31 states with an online community and social media following, which is growing, of more than 100,000. And we're so excited about that. iRelaunch, our partner, works with employers to build return to work programs and provides career reentry tools and resources for professionals returning to work after a career break. I am a longtime member of the iRelaunch Advisory Board, and I'm really, really thrilled tonight to see two of my favorite organizations coming together to bring you this very important discussion. We joined forces recently as many companies with which iRelaunch is connected have expressed an interest in diversifying their ranks and literally changing their recruiting process. And we have many mothers who are experiencing the seasons of motherhood and interested in returning to work. So we're excited to bring this to you. First, I'd like to thank our hardworking Mocha Moms National Board. Yay! Thank you for helping pull this together, and especially to our Shalon Newton, our National Director of Sponsorships and Partnerships, as well as the team at iRelaunch, especially Carol Fishman-Cohen, the head of iRelaunch, and the driving force behind so many of its initiatives, as well as Shannon Amsbacher and Monique Millett. They are a fabulous team, and we're so excited to be working with them. So we have about an hour for discussion. So we'll chat for an hour, and then we'll answer some of the many, many wonderful questions that you all have submitted. We received hundreds of questions. And so what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the questions that allow us to give our perspective as Black women. I doubt if we'll be able to get to all of the questions. So the rest we'll make sure we answer in a whole Q&A series that we're going to put together. And who knows, maybe we can do a part 2. So I want to introduce our panelists. Danae, where are you? Danae Aicher. Hey, Danae.
Hi, Kuae.
How are you?
I am doing well, thank you. I'm so
Good.
excited to be here to have this
So excited to have
conversation.
you here. Let me just tell you a little bit about our Danae. Danae is our Mocha Moms National Director of Communications, Advocacy, and Public Policy. As an experienced equity and inclusion facilitator, Danae has a gift for creating brave spaces for people to address difficult topics around race within their organizations. A former mass communications professional with a degree in history and more than 20 years of experience in news, politics, and public relations, she utilizes humor and all of her experience to help teams understand how racist systems and policies replicate and perpetuate themselves in an ongoing cycle unless they're intentionally interrupted. In addition to facilitating workshops and trainings for school teams and nonprofit organizations, Danae serves as the Equity Director at Rainbow Community School, a holistic independent school in Asheville, North Carolina, and Rainbow Institute, the school's adult and organization education counterpart. Over 30 years, Danae's career trajectory has taken her from a political journalist to political operative, to social and racial justice educator. She left her professional career for a few years to dedicate herself full-time to raising her young family. She also sits on the board of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Western North Carolina, and she served 4 years on the board of Building Bridges of Asheville, the local anti-racism organization that brings together the community in a brave space to talk about race, racism, and how both show up in Asheville and the broader Western North Carolina region. Ivory, how are you, Ivory? You there?
I'm here. Wonderful. Thank you.
Good. Thank you so much for joining us. Ivory is a native of Englewood, New Jersey, and she wears many hats. She's been an educator in the special education field since 1999, and she holds a master's degree from Bank Street College. She also attended Columbia University in New York City. She's a married mother of two, as well as an entrepreneur and parental caregiver. In addition, she's the vice president of the PTA at Sandpine Elementary School in Wesley Chapel, Florida, and the founder and co-president of the North Tampa Mocha Moms. Yay!
Thank you.
Next, we have Kimberly. Kimberly, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Great, great. Thank you so much for joining us. After graduating from Spelman College with a degree in economics, Kimberly started her career in accounting, working in the mutual fund and hedge industry for various financial services companies, including BNY Mellon, UBS, and Credit Suisse. Kimberly's role was impacted through a reorganization 2 months before the birth of her son. After a 4-year career break, Kimberly relaunched her career with the American Express Return to Work program in partnership with iRelaunch. Kimberly has been with American Express for over 2 years in the controllership organization, providing accounting support on key business processes and other financial reporting initiatives. She's recently taken on a new role, supporting and driving forward a variety of initiatives in areas of budget management, communications, development, strategy, and other ad hoc projects. Kimberly currently resides in Queens, New York, with her partner and son. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us and for being here. We're so excited about this discussion. Those of you all who are here, this is really just going to be a chat. We're going to chat about a bunch of stuff. It's going to be organic. We don't have any huge structure. We just want to chat about, from our perspective, some of the issues that we're dealing with. So let's first start with, why are we here? Why are we having a panel called the Black Relaunchers Perspective? Why is it important to talk about the unique issues that Black women face when relaunching their careers? Danae?
Well, I would say that for as much as we share with anyone who has stepped out of the professional workforce for any variety of reasons, what we also know is that laying on the extra layer of race presents its own set of unique issues that are unfair, but are ones that we deal with. So, for instance, what we know in the professional sphere from studies is that white sounding names, for instance, are 50% more likely to get called back for an initial interview than applicants with uniquely African American sounding names. We know that white job applicants with higher quality resumes receive 30% more callbacks than white applicants with lower quality resumes. But when African Americans and Black applicants experience only 9% more callbacks for the same improvement in their credentials. So we know that we are experiencing something very unique in the professional sphere that has everything to do with race, which is not to say, right? I think when we bring up race, people assume, oh, somebody's being mean or malicious or, you know, wearing like a hood up under their top hat. And that's not at all what these studies are showing. More than anything, what they're showing is that there is implicit bias in the workplace. And we are continuing, even in the professional sphere, to experience that. And so we need this Black perspective when it comes to iRelaunching and getting back into our professional lives.
Yeah, I mean, it's rampant also, and many folks aren't even aware that it's happening. So you know, we need to call it out. We need to call it out.
We can't fix it if we can't name it, right?
Exactly. Exactly. We have to put a spotlight on it and call it out, talk about these
Mhm.
issues, make sure folks understand they're happening. So maybe they'll think twice. Who knows?
Right.
What do you think,
You're
Kim and
right.
Ivory?
I agree. I think it definitely has to be called out and, call it what it is. It's racism. If people are discriminating by name, because most of everything now is virtual, so you can't see the person face to face. And if you see a resume that has an ethnic name or Afrocentric name, then it's easy to discriminate behind closed doors.
Kim?
Yeah, I was just going to say, definitely, I mean, the challenge exists for people who are trying to return to work, but then again, that added layer just makes it just it's so much more pressure on the shoulders when you walk into the room, when you walk into certain events, when you see people in the same situation as you as having a career break, but then you still don't see anybody that looks like you. It's very scary and challenging.
So let's just rewind for a moment and acknowledge our history, because you talked about staying at home and seeing people who look like us. Historically, Black women have not had the opportunity to
Right.
stay at home. And so by and large, our
Not at our
mothers
own
and what did you say, Danae?
Not at our own homes.
Exactly. They work for others in many instances in other homes. And by and large, our mothers and our grandmothers worked. And so there was really no blueprint for us. This is new frontier for many of us. So right from the beginning, kind of this notion of us staying at home is a new notion for a lot of folks, even for many of our family members and friends who don't understand that concept for a Black woman to make the choice to stay at home. So I wanted to just kind of first acknowledge that history. This staying at home and not being in the workforce thing, is kind of an anomaly for us. And there are many assumptions that are often made about us because many people in this country don't even know we exist. And I
Right.
can tell you, as national president of Mocha Moms, many people have approached me about our organization making those assumptions. The first assumption, all of our mothers are single mothers, they're not married. The next assumption, our mothers are collecting a government check in some form or fashion. They're lacking education. I mean, there's a lot of assumptions that are made, and we know that those assumptions couldn't be further from the truth. So I want to share with you a little survey, some survey statistics that we just gathered from Mocha Moms just over the past few weeks, to show you how we know that that's not that's not the case. 75% of our mothers are married, 14% are single, 8% are divorced, 1% are widowed. Education level, 46% of our mothers in our organization, staying home and working, have master's degrees.
Right.
33% have bachelor's degrees, 12% have PhDs, and 5% have associate's degrees, and only 3% have high school diplomas. Income, same thing. 46% have household income between 100,000 and 199,000. 28% have household income greater than 200,000, and 27% have household income less than 99,000. So all of these assumptions that are made about us are just that, assumptions.
Right.
Ivory, tell us a little bit about your journey from work to home and then back to work.
Well, I have a very interesting journey. I think we all do. I was very successful in my career as an educator. I worked hard to, climb that ladder economically. I did the master's, I did the plus 30, got all those pluses, financially. And when my husband moved, his job was transferred to Florida, and I was having medical issues. at the same time, from my pregnancy of my second child, I decided to take a leave of absence initially and move to, well, I took the leave of absence and then I had my son in Florida. I wanted to go back to work. So I moved back to New Jersey. And then I medically just couldn't do it. And I ended up retiring, medical retirement. And then I moved back to Florida. And then when I had my son, and I knew staying home was something that I wanted to do. I stayed home a little bit for my first child and 3 years for my second child. And I was in Florida with my husband and my daughter. And my son was having a few issues with developing his speech. So I wanted to stay home until he was a little bit, more stable and ready to go to school. We finally got him the help that he needed. And then I was ready to go back to work at that time. So my approach to going back to work was such that I just didn't know where to start. So I thought I had a great resume. I put it online and I went through Indeed.com, and I realized after sharing my resume with a few people that it wasn't, what it was all supposed to be. And then I entered my resume into resume help through Indeed. And then I found that, I was missing some important information. So when I resubmitted my resume, I started to get more contacts, and my resume was matching with different schools. And I was specifically looking for something that would train me, because I had been out of work for so long and I was still having medical issues. So I really was specific, especially during COVID, that I wanted to stay home and work from home, also so I could be here with my children. So I I didn't find a job found me on Indeed. And I was matched with a company. And it's funny, I was in my bed responding to a job. and they called me the same day to set up an interview. It was amazing. So
Ivory, what was the time frame from the time that you first put your resume out on Indeed? Like, how much time transpired? I mean, were you getting frustrated, or did it happen rather quickly?
It happened rather quickly. I mean, within 3 months, I had gone on two live interviews and one virtual interview. So the live interview wanted me to work in school in person, and COVID was just starting. So I did not want to do that. So I was definitely looking for something online in fear of COVID. So, and, I kind of wanted to be home anyway with my children. So it was a 3-month span when I, from the time I put my resume out to the time that I landed the job that I'm at now. I teach online and I love it. It's just the most wonderful thing, working from home.
What do you think did it though? I mean, you said that you had some updates done to your resume, but why do you think it worked that way?
Why did I get hired? Or
yeah. Why do you think it worked so smoothly in that way?
That's a loaded question.
I know.
So a few things. My resume had, I added the necessary statistics that I needed to show percentages and things like that, that businesses look for. And then the first interview was with one person. The second interview was with 2 people. So I think, minus the face-to-face contact initially, when you submit your resume, I think my name is ethnically ambiguous. Ivory, McGee-Perry, you really don't know, you know, who holds that name. My resume is not very loaded with African American or any type of, you know, traditional ethnic things. I mean, I do have my NAACP and Mocha moms, but you know, that could be anybody if they don't do their research. So I think, you know, being online and just with the fact that Indeed does data searches, it's really just strictly, you know, this company is looking for someone with a master's degree, teacher's experience, and willing to work these hours. And that is that you? And then, you know, simply responding yes. And that was my foot in the door.
That's great. Kim, your journey was a little different. Talk to us about your journey, being at home and then getting back.
Yes. So I was on a career break for about 4 years. And as I was prepping for this panel, I actually remembered something that I actually had forgotten, that I actually did have a career break for a year in 2012. So I worked for Credit Suisse. They were going through a reorganization. They had given us a heads up, so we knew we had about a year before our roles ended. So I figured I would take a year off and do a little bit of traveling. During that year of me traveling is when my father became sick. And so that is when my caregiving journey started. Towards the end of 2012, Credit Suisse called back because the outsourcing project wasn't really going the way that they wanted. And so they decided it was easier just to bring people back on a contract basis. So I went back to Credit Suisse for a year on a contract basis. And at the end of that contract, I knew that my son was going to be born 2 months later. So we had just decided I would take a year off and we would go from there. Didn't know 1 year was going to turn into 4 years, but it did.
That's how it happens. That's how it happens.
Yeah.
You blink and then you look up.
Right. Yes. And at the same time, I was still co-caregiving with my sister for my dad. But then at around the 2.5 year mark, I decided, okay, I want to start looking again. But then I started to look and I wasn't really getting any hits. And what I later realized was just that I already had that year gap on my resume. Then I went back to work, and then now I was having that 2.5, 3, and it was growing. And so I didn't have anything on my resume that explained why I had taken a break. And so people probably were filling in the gaps, making up stories of their own as to why, you know, I had, in their eyes, left maybe this company, or why I had taken time off. And so, again, talked to a lot of different people, continue to reach out to old networks. But then just one day, just like typing on the computer, trying to find keywords, like, how do I get back to work? Like literally on Google, just happened to stumble across iRelaunch, and their conference was coming up. I wasn't able to attend the conference because it was so, there was a wait list. So I was unable to attend the conference, but was able to be a part of that community. And through that community is how I was able to apply to the program for American Express. I'd also applied to a program with Bank of America. They didn't have a full return to work program at the time. It was just like a 2-day workshop, but that workshop was really helpful with creating a new network for me, and helping giving us some tools that we could use to get back into the workforce. And at that same time that I was doing the Bank of America, that 2-day workshop, I had already put my application in for American Express. And then everything worked out with American Express. And like you mentioned earlier, I've been in American Express for about 2.5, almost 3 years now.
That's awesome. Someone just asked, what was the community? Talk a little bit more about the iRelaunch community, because iRelaunch to a lot of our moms is new. I mean, they have not heard of iRelaunch. I've been on the advisory board for a number of years, and I've had the benefit of being able to go to their incredible conferences all across this country. So talk a little bit about, even if you weren't able to go to the conference, the community that you joined.
The community, right. So iRelaunch, definitely, they have Facebook group, they have their web, their, I can't think of it, their website.
Yeah.
That's kind of late. Their website, which has a number of resources on it. The Facebook page also has Facebook groups. But so even, for example, if someone didn't go to the conference, there were just other opportunities to network and meet people. So you realize that there are other people in the same boat, like hundreds of thousands of people like you who've taken a break for whether it was from 1 year to all the way 20 plus years. And so just having that community, because when you're, well, in my, again, home, staying at home with my son, being a caregiver, no longer, if you want to say, attached to my, to my work or community there, it was great to have a community of people who, again, just had similar experiences in trying to relaunch their career.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we're going to talk about in a minute after Danae shares her story with us, and that is access as Black women, access to opportunity, access to these networks. I mean, do we feel that we have full access to these networks, or do we have to really work hard to find these networks, to uncover them, and to have folks reach out to us to be a part of them? So we'll talk about that in just a moment. Danae, tell us about you.
Well, I will say that I was lucky when I found my new job. I wasn't actually in the market, but here's what happened. And I think it's a really important thing to point out to folks when we are looking for work, because it is hard, right? And we know that we have the cards stacked against us. But when I decided to stay at home, and when I say stay at home, I mean just dedicate my time and all of my services to my new baby at the time. I understood it to be a revolutionary act, right? That I was doing what our ancestors hoped for us to do, and that is
Yes.
for us to focus on our children and our
Yes.
families and nurture and grow them. And so I understood it as the revolutionary act that it was, and took it so seriously. I don't know if Kuae, you remember this, that I was pregnant when I found Mocha Moms.
I remember.
I am going to need some support.
Yes.
And was pregnant as we chartered with some other women in the Hampton Roads, Virginia area,
Yeah.
chartered while I was still pregnant. And so it was about finding a community in Mocha Moms and finding a place to put my skills, right, to work while mommying, being a part of this organization. So first of all, at-home moms are working all the time anyway. We are always using our skills. And I just use my professional skills, not only to mommy, not only to be wife, but also to be a part of this organization. And it gave me the space to explore other areas of interest that I'd put aside. And you know this, Kuae, just as a journalist, I was always running. When I was in politics, I was always running, and just didn't have the space to explore the things that I was really interested in and to explore passions. And so there was Mocha Moms, again, that I started to put some professional skills to. And then I started doing volunteer work, and lots of volunteer work around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so it was, by this time, my son was probably in the first or second grade, when my kids were in private school, and the head of school, because they were facing some problems, called and said, "We need an equity director. Might you be interested at this point in coming to do this work for the school?" But that would not have happened had I not already been active and engaged, even at a volunteer level, for so much time, and putting extra time into studying myself and to growing that professional toolkit as well. I was attending conferences, and so on and so forth. So I continued to work while I did the at-home work, so that so that I could be ready. What do they say? Be ready when the opportunity comes for you.
Right. Always. Always. That's great. So let's, I noticed there are a few comments in the chat, and I want to refer to them in just a moment. Let's tick off a few issues that all of us know about as Black women, whether we've dealt with it or not. We certainly know Black women who have. We chatted earlier this week about some of the issues that we face. We've already kind of talked about it a little bit. One is our names on those resumes. Someone in the chat just mentioned that it's not just names anymore. It's the high school that you mention on your resume. It's the college that you mention on your resume. The HBCU, it's your zip code. Apparently, you know, there are folks who know your zip code and know where you live and make assumptions based on your zip code. So it runs deep. It's things that we probably don't even think about. I certainly didn't think about the zip code and the high school and all that, but I can see how that could definitely be the case. Let's talk a little bit about the resume just for a moment, because that seems to be a sticking point for a lot of moms. Someone just asked, do you recommend that you put your gap years on a resume? I'm going to tell you what I ended up doing, because for years, it took me a lot of years to get back to work. I would say 5 to 6 years. I was looking earnestly to get back to work and getting really, really frustrated. And I think I spent a lot of time applying for jobs online and not understanding, with my experience, why I wasn't hearing from folks. And I came to the conclusion that because everything's so automated now, because my resume now isn't even going to a person first, it's going through an automated system first, that maybe this automated system wasn't catching my resume. It was seeing these gaps on my resume and just spewing it out. Like it was never even getting to a person. That's the conclusion I came to. So I don't know if Carol is on here. I might defer to her to answer this question, but I'll tell you what I learned through iRelaunch. Yes, you should absolutely put your gap on your resume, but you should put it on in a section. What I've ended up doing is putting it on in a section called career break. So my resume is chronological, but I have a career break section that says spent 13 years at home, caring for my children, worked as a freelance journalist, did this and this and this. And that's all part of my resume. So when you look at my resume now, all gaps are accounted for because I've created my own career break statement that outlined what I did during my gap. And that's what I think iRelaunch recommends, and what a lot of folks would recommend, because that was, I think, my biggest difficulty. And I'd love to hear from you all, accounting for those gaps. Not only folks asking you about, what were you doing during that period of time? I mean, what were you doing? And then when you go to social events and they say, oh, what do you do? And, it has become awkward for a lot of women, and a lot of Black women in particular. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, the gap in the resume.
I filled my gap with Mocha moms and board work.
Yep.
And I just kept it going because it is work and it is valuable. And you're right, things are so automated now, but it was important to have that time filled on the paper.
Yep.
And then once we are in front of someone, right, then we can talk about the value of that work. And my experience has been, once I am in front of someone, I can, like, it's clear and it's understandable that, oh, there is actual work happening. And it's a shame that we live in a society that still doesn't value the labor that goes into motherhood. That is unfortunate, and we are working on that too.
Because we use CEO skills.
Absolutely.
I mean, these are all CEO skills that we use. There's no question.
Absolutely. Time management, project management,
multitasking, psychologist, counselor.
Right.
I mean, we wear all hats at the same time.
I think another thing you can do, what I did to fill my gaps is I started a small business with my husband. And even if you have a hobby that you want to turn into a small business, that's something that you could do And that's something that you can put on your resume, you know, small business owner or entrepreneur, you know, something like that could fill your gap as well.
What I was just going to also add is that, yes, I had some volunteer experience that I made sure I highlighted on my resume, but definitely, like Danae say, when talking about it, like it, for people, it just felt better for them. Also, what I found is that people were more accepting when I mentioned that I was a caregiver for my father. When I mentioned, yes, I'm a stay-at-home mom, it's kind of like you could see their face. But when I said I'm a caregiver for my dad, then it was kind of like, oh, okay. Like that was more.
It changed things. It elevated things.
Yeah,
in their
it definitely did.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that was something that I noticed as well. But I did, again, then I had to shift away from there and explain what not explain what I've done before. And even what you just mentioned, Kuae, just the multiple hats that we wear, I just had to bring it, you know, to their attention.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get back to that talk about access to opportunity, because I think this is one of the biggest challenges that we as Black women have. We have to work harder to find those opportunities. We absolutely do. They're not handed to us. We have to find these networks. Kim, you know, you found iRelaunch, but there's so many networks, you know, of women who share information, just where there's a free flow of discussion about jobs and opportunities and careers and connections. So let's talk about that in particular, and you know, what you've done to kind of get into pipelines and to access networks.
I'll start with that. I just started talking to friends, and friends started sending me job opportunities. And, you know, networking with friends and people who know people, things like that, that's very helpful. That was helpful on different occasions when, you know, even when I got in a position where my company was looking for more teachers, I started putting the word out saying my company is hiring. So yes, networking with friends and even family is definitely one way to help get a position that you're looking for.
Right.
I see someone has asked about our Mochapreneur network, and I just do want to respond to that and say that our Mochapreneur network is the network within Mocha Moms of Mochas who are entrepreneurs. So we call them Mochapreneurs. And there's an entire network of them within Mocha Moms.
It is big and thriving. I think there's more than 300 moms in that network. They meet regularly, they share information, they talk about their businesses. It's a wonderful, wonderful network of moms who are supporting each other with their businesses. So yes, please check out our Mochapreneur network for sure.
What I was going to say to your question, Kuae, was that I think that, well, very definitely as Black women, we are saddled with a lot of, we're just saddled with heavy stereotypes, right? And so sometimes I think what we do to not be seen as too much is we become not or not enough, right? We're either too much or not enough. And so I think that we have to make the conscious decision to just decide to be, it is better to be too much than not enough. And so we just have to be bold. We have to bring our full, beautiful selves to the space and just show up in our best ways. And I think we just have to take back our power and say, this is what I want, and be prepared to name it and say it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, speaking of the burdens that we carry, and you're so right, Danae. I mean, we do carry a lot of burdens, and often we don't think about all the burdens that we carry, but we do.
Right.
There are, I think, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, there are higher expectations of us.
Absolutely.
not only when applying for a job, but once you get the job, the expectations are for sure higher. Um, I have a friend who worked with a white woman who was woefully unqualified for her position, hired anyway, woefully unqualified, who kept coming to my friend to ask her some of the most basic and mundane things. And my friend kept wondering, like, how the heck, how was she hired? How was she hired with that lack of qualification and her lack of knowledge? But it's something that we see time and time again, but yet we feel, we feel we carry this, we have to do more, we have to be more, we have to work harder. How many of you, had parents who said to them, you have to work twice as hard? I mean, because that's how, I mean, maybe even not even twice as hard, three times as hard, you know? That's how we were raised,
Mhm.
We were told the expectations are so high that you have to work 2 and 3 times as hard. And that's how we're raising our children. That's how we continue to raise our children. And that's how our children will raise their children, and it will perpetuate itself. And we will continue to carry this burden.
Mhm.
Yes, I agree. I mean, I'm raising my daughters in elementary school, and it's predominantly white, and she compares herself to them sometimes, saying, well, I'm not the only one that didn't get an A. Um, I'm not their parent, I'm your parent. So the pressure is on, and I do have very high expectations, and I tell her teachers that I have high expectations of my children. So I don't think they're used to that. I don't think they're used to hearing that, especially the first week of school. I start the year off with, we have very high expectations of our children. So if anything goes wrong, if anything, is not above par, please let me know so I can fix it. Because
Oh, yeah.
everything you're teaching, I can teach her myself at home because I'm a teacher. So, there is really no room or excuse for anything less. And, sometimes it can be a bit much, but I don't feel like we have the room
We don't.
No,
to
we
be
don't.
less.
We don't have the room to be less.
That is not self-imposed, right? We know this to be true, and all of the statistics show it to be true. Year after year, these major research universities do the same study of sending out the same resume with different names on it, and the results are year after year after year the same. So we know that it's happening, and that is the burden we carry. I don't even know what to say about that, except that
I,
we know that
I,
it is.
I don't know what to say about it either. I don't even know how to lift it if I wanted to lift it, because it's a part of us. It's a part of who we are.
Well, and the
And
work that I do is that's what I mean. I'm trying to work on the opposite side, right?
mhm,
To have employers be more aware of it and to change how they're operating. But until there's wholesale change, Black women will have to continue to be 2 and 3 and 4 times as good
yeah,
and do that much more work. I've been on, campaigns and as doing press and media, and then also asked to do outreach into the Black community, which is not like a part of the job description. And I had to stand my ground and say, this is what you hired me for. And by the way, there are Black folks who are in business, and that is their job, to do Black outreach. So you can't have me, one, right, to do two jobs for the one that you're paying me for, and then not paying the very people who are experts in that field.
right.
Right? But that has to be said.
Yeah, it does have to be said. It has to be pointed out. There are
I
so
was
many
just
issues. Go ahead.
I was just gonna just talk about when we were talking about the burden.
Yeah.
I know I had when we were talking earlier this week, I was just expressing that when it was time for me to return to work, I was just thinking like, I don't want to go back to corporate America, because I was just kept thinking about like all of the experiences that I had previously had. But there was something a little bit different about American Express. We were saying that earlier, American Express is a little bit of a different place. The culture is a little bit ahead of some companies. Still has a long way to go, but definitely have had a head start. But when I started at American Express, I was just very hesitant, just bringing all of what I had already, you know, what I had to do in other roles to American Express. And then when I got there, I was kind of just like, this place is a little bit different. So there's a lot of unlearning I had to do. A lot of it was in my mind too, because I was just so used to, yes, wanting to show up as my authentic self, but having to do so much work before I even get to the office, you know, not even just talking about getting my son up to go to school, all of that, but just the mental work, making sure my hair looked a certain way, making sure, you know, what I'm wearing is halfway decent so it won't be like a distraction.
Yeah.
Making sure, yes, I share, but then not share too much, because I don't know if you want to know, you know, like what you're going to think about what I have to say, as far as my personal life. So there's a lot of unlearning that I had to do. And so it was also in that moment that I realized just how much of a burden that we have, like we know, but again, when I was going through that unlearning, I was just like, wow, you know?
Yeah, it's a lot. Another burden that I think we carry is the burden of shame. Um, Shame in having a hard time getting back to work. I know I felt that. I was looking for a long time, and I was saying to myself, you know, girl, you've got great experience. Um, and I was feeling shameful that I didn't hear from anyone. I was feeling shameful that I hadn't gotten back to work, and and I didn't want to tell anybody. I mean, even my close friends, they knew I was looking, but they didn't know how it was weighing on me. They didn't know that I was carrying it in that way. And it took a long time for me to get over the shame of um, not only looking, but not being able to find something. And once I got over it and started sharing with folks, that's when the jobs came, because they would see things and they would say, "Oh, hey, I know you're looking. I saw this. I thought of you." But it took a lot. It took a lot for me to lift that burden of shame. Did you all feel shame?
I definitely did. And I felt more fear of rejection, because I had worked at the same job since I graduated from college, in the same school district. And it was just so unfamiliar to me to have to put together a resume and interview. I was so nervous. And, I had one friend, my friend Capri, she was always my biggest cheerleader. She kept saying, you can do this, you can do this. They want you, you know? And so, that was really how I got through it. But I felt the shame, I felt the nervousness. I felt fear of rejection. What if they don't want me? What if I've been out too long? What if my skills are outdated? All those things that go through your head of why you might not be good enough anymore, that is hard to get over. And thank God I did, thanks to my support system and, my good friend, cheering me on through the whole process. So you definitely have to
And
have
that
support.
and that shame leads to lack of confidence.
Right.
And I don't know about you all, but it impacts every aspect of my being.
Mhm.
Right.
My physical being, my emotional, my psychological. It impacts every single part of me. And it is it's a bear to overcome. It really, really is.
I had
Yeah,
a,
definitely.
oh, go
Go ahead.
ahead, Kim.
Go ahead, Kim. Sorry.
No, I was just going to echo the sentiments of shame. What I also felt was, as the years were getting longer, then I got more of the comments of, oh, see, maybe you shouldn't have stayed out too long. Like 1 year was okay. But then when it got to 2 years, it was kind of just like, oh, you see, you know? I definitely, even from my mom, she just did not understand. She just kept asking. And I don't think she meant anything by it. But again, just her experience, however many years ago, she just could not understand, wrap her mind around it. But every time she would ask me, it would just make me feel just like a little bit, but just take me back, you know, one more step. But definitely Mocha Moms, I joined Mocha Moms when my son was about a little over 1. I'm currently the president of the Queens chapter. Mocha Moms has stay-at-home moms and working moms. So definitely having that support. Yes, it was the best of both worlds. Like I had that community of support for my stay-at-home side, you know, but then I also had that community of support for people who were working, and it just showed me that I could get back into work. So that was definitely, Mocha Moms have definitely been a lifesaver.
I was going to say, I have felt shame before because of traumas endured in the workplace. It's because
Yes.
that's just real. I will say though, and this is one of the such the important things to remember for us as Black women. I did not have any shame around the choice that I made to stay at home and going back to work because I will say this, Kuae, because of Mocha Moms. First
Yeah.
of all, y'all ladies put me to work. So, I mean, if
I
you just
know.
don't have anything to do, like we can find something for you to do, use all of your skills in
Oh,
Mocha
we
Moms.
put you to work.
Absolutely. But there's something to be said, and we have been taught to underestimate the power of our sisterhood, right?
Absolutely.
We see it on TV and we are told all of these things about like devaluing our relationships with each other. And what I have found with Mocha Moms is that like we live an experience of all of those stereotypes just not being true. When I was in my local chapter in Virginia, I would go and I was actively an at-home mom. I would go once a week and was being with other women who had had professional careers and who were dynamic and making the same choice. And on the board, I am surrounded by dynamic women who just have so much power in their own right and
Yeah.
are always lifting us up and saying, we can do amazing things. And so for my experience has been just one of feeling really, really supported and grounded in a sisterhood. And it doesn't make all the problems go away, but it does remind me that I am not alone in facing those problems and
Yeah.
that there are countless numbers of us all across the country who are working and standing in the gap for each other. And if we
Absolutely.
can just see that and lean into that and commit to being a part of that and supporting that, we can lift some burdens for one another,
Absolutely. It's powerful.
regardless of what our income is, right? Regardless of what our marital status is, regardless of what our professional choices are. We really need to get to sisterhood to lift some burdens for each other.
So true.
Definitely.
So true. Now I've seen a number of comments in the chat about ageism. So I
Mhm.
want to address that and I want to talk about that, probably because I'm the oldest person here on this panel and I'm dealing with it. I got back to work after 13 years at home at age 50. And I work in television where everybody is young, super young. And so one of the things I did, and I'd love to hear what you all have done, if you did anything, was I removed all the years on my previous jobs on my resume. So it says I went to Howard University and Columbia University, but you don't know the year. It says my first job and my second job, and it lists all those things because those things are relevant to my career. So I want to have it on there, but you're going to have to figure out, you're going to have to do some work to figure out what year that was. You can gather it together and figure it out, but I've made it much harder for you all to do that. So that's one of the things I've done. That's my little hack, my little ageism hack. The other thing I know a lot of folks do is go out and they become experts in a particular subject matter. And so, you know, the age doesn't matter because you're just an expert. And so people turn to you because you're an expert in that field. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I don't know yet, Kuae. I'm going to say go the expert route and become like and consult. Like,
Should I send you my resume so you can look at what I did?
I really love the idea of being an expert because you have to have experience and wisdom to be an expert. So you can't be 25. Well, you can, but technically with age comes experience. So that expert idea is something that I'm definitely going to move toward.
Absolutely. Arm yourself, get up to date with the skills in your industry, you know, update yourself on everything you need to know and do in your industry and become an expert in your field. The age it becomes much less of an issue.
That's true. And I forgot to mention before, that's one of the reasons why I was wanted to choose the job that I have now, because the training that came with it is so invaluable. It's just amazing. I'm learning things that I never knew, how to go about online teaching, which is totally different from classroom brick and mortar teaching. And the experience that I have gained in the past, 4 months is just beyond anything that I would have ever dreamed of. So that experience has been really great. Yeah.
Super important. Okay.
And show flexibility, right? Show flexibility and willingness, I would say.
Oh, sure. You have to. Another thing, I mean, speaking of that flexibility, I wanted to go back to work at a certain level because I said, oh, you know, here's where I was before. I need to be here now. I had to dispense with that notion fairly early on because really I wanted to get back to work. So the way I see it, you know, you get the boat in the water and then you steer it. And so for many of us, the boat's in the water. Some of us has steered a little more. Others are, you know, positioning ourselves to steer it in the water. So that's kind of how I see it. It is 10:02 and I know time is flying. So I want to get to some of the questions. We got a bunch of questions. We're not going to be able to get to all of them at all. So we're going to put together a Q&A series later on to answer a lot of the questions. A lot of the questions were very general questions about relaunching, getting back to work, gaps on your resume, things of that nature. But I pulled out just a few that I thought we could kind of speak on from our own perspective as Black women. So the first one I'm going to throw out to you all is, as a Black woman, what is the most difficult hurdle to climb when re-entering the workforce? What do you think is the most difficult? Kim, I think you told me something about things being more mental for you.
Yes, it's definite. For me, it definitely was the mental. Because like I mentioned, you know, going to the workshop, having that community of people who were relaunching their careers, we were all like in the same place, but I still felt less than. And so even though I did get selected, I you know, got through with the program and I was there. I remember having a conversation one time with somebody, and because I was just, and in my program, there were just 6 of us, but I was the only Black one. So there was a lot of times where I was just thinking like, did they hire me to meet the quota, you know? So it's definitely
that's always in the
me,
back of your head. I mean, mine too. You know, why am I the only one? You know, oh, this must have been, you know, this must have been time to hire another Black person because there was no one here. I mean, these, you know, it's like a voice in your head thinking about these things.
Right. So having to just work through that, you know, work through that mental, that piece for me was just most challenging, getting back to work. I mean, and again, there were other challenges. Yes, I just want to highlight that as well. There's other challenges as well getting back to work, but you know, just as a Black woman, that was one of my major challenges.
I think one of my hurdles was trying to find that work-life balance. That's one of the things that was very difficult because my daughter especially was used to having me home at her access all the time. And then all of a sudden it was like, please don't come in my office. I'm online, I'm teaching. You cannot disturb me. Whatever it is, it has to wait. And then her feeling like mommy's not there and,
Yeah.
you know, when are you going to spend time with me and things like that. So it was difficult also trying to balance the schedule and dinner and, you know, parenting and being a wife is just a lot to balance. And that time management became key, top priority, Google Calendar, everything. So that helped me get over that hurdle. And I think I'm still trying to figure it out.
I think we always will still be trying to figure that out.
That one, right?
I mean, this work-life balance thing, like, does it even exist? It's like kind of up in the sky type thing, you know? Does like we talk about it all the time, but like where's the scale? Like, where is it? Will we ever attain it?
No.
Exactly. So why are we trying?
Right. Why? We cannot have it all
Yeah, go ahead,
at the
Danae.
same time.
What'd you say?
We cannot have it all at the same time.
Exactly right. I think that's the conclusion many of us have come to. Okay. Here's a really good one. Can you speak to the survival mode that Black women go into when entering white spaces, especially, but mostly at work? How to handle it? And let me just kind of get you thinking about this. And Kim, I think you kind of alluded to it earlier. There is a delicate dance that we do.
Right.
Being Black, but not too Black. Making sure our hair is not too ethnic. Being hyper visible as Black women in the workplace, but invisible when we're there, and having to work 10 times as hard to get noticed. So that's all part of that survival mode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Kim, were you going to speak to that? I was thinking, it's this. So intersectionality, right, is a buzzword. Kimberly Crenshaw, who's a brilliant
Oh,
attorney,
yes.
came up with the term to talk about the hole often that Black women fall into because of the intersection of being with part of two historically marginalized groups, right? So not only do we face the very typical thing that women face, right, of putting forth an idea and having men mansplain it. We also face that from white women, right, who are white-splaining the very same thing that we just said. It's a delicate dance, and we have to find a way to deal with it, and then risk being called angry, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. The angry Black woman.
Being too sensitive, or playing the race
Right.
card, right?
Watch your
So,
tone. Right.
right, and we're being policed all the time and expected to be magical saviors
Right.
of all the things. Um, so let's just say right here, right? If there are any employers listening, don't put the Black women in your workforce in that position,
No, because
right? We can,
that's another burden.
right. We can create policy around that. We can create equitable practices to eliminate those burdens. And when you do that, right, you get the best of everything that we have to bring.
Mm-hmm.
Danae,
And
someone wanted to know if you just said white splaining. Can you clarify?
white splaining, it's a thing. Do I need to clarify? It's like mansplaining, right? So I have faces. I will say something to a group, and then it will be followed up with an explanation of explaining what I just said, almost word for word, as if what I just said couldn't be understood by the group of people that I said it to.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. We kind of touched on this a little bit. What is the best use of LinkedIn as we Mocha moms of a certain age relaunch? Are you all are all on LinkedIn, right?
Mhm.
Let me just say something about LinkedIn. LinkedIn, in my mind, is a underutilized resource. LinkedIn is an amazing platform. I took a class once at the local library about how to use LinkedIn, and I learned about functionality that LinkedIn has that I never knew it had. I mean, I learned how to find out how many contacts I truly had. You know how it says on the page that you have whatever, 400, 500 contacts? You really have probably about 1 million contacts, because those folks know other folks, know other folks, know other folks. And those are all folks who can connect you to all those other folks. So your contacts, it's not really what you see on that page. It's everyone who you can reach out to who can connect you to someone else. And so I am constantly trying to find new ways to use LinkedIn. And I don't use it like I should, but LinkedIn is an amazing, amazing platform, because it gives you the ability to be connected to people that you wouldn't otherwise be connected to. But this is asking about Mocha moms of a certain age. So I'm assuming it's probably the ageism question. Same thing. For me, it's the removal of dates and years. And also, it's just kind of staying up on my industry and sharing information that's relevant, and being up to date on everything that's going on in my industry. Any thoughts on that, on using LinkedIn?
I, like you, I don't use it like I should.
Yeah,
But
it's
have known and heard of that it is an amazing resource. If particularly if you think about it exponentially, your contacts being emphasized by their contacts and who can see you. So
yep, it's
I think
good.
you said something that you said it so fast, I don't think you realize how powerful it was. Kuae, you said you took a class at your local library on for LinkedIn.
I did.
And that is amazing that your local library is offering a class on LinkedIn. I just wrote that down. I was like, oh, we're going to do that in Mocha Moms. Like, I'm going to find one of these moms
Yeah.
who knows how to do the LinkedIn and have her teach a class. That's going to
Well,
be
you
one of
know
our.
what? It's a great idea. It's a great idea.
Yeah.
And this was a few years ago when LinkedIn was, people were just getting acclimated to LinkedIn.
Mhm.
And it was
Mhm.
a free class, and it was like a 1 hour class with a LinkedIn expert. And I learned things I wouldn't otherwise know. But that's absolutely something that can be done within chapters. The
Yeah.
LinkedIn savvy chapter member can
Mhm.
certainly,
Absolutely.
you can do that on your computer easily, and share that and do that virtually, since we're all virtual. So definitely.
make
Uh,
that a career. Make that
huh?
your area, and make that a career, and make
That's
that your
right.
area of expertise. We all need coaching,
We
and we
do.
all need coaching who that represents us.
We do.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so many of us also need someone to give that extra look to our resume and make sure it has all the keywords, and make sure it has all the career break information, and the relevant information. So eyes will be on it. So absolutely. How about this? In this era of supposedly embracing racial diversity and inclusion, especially with the introduction of high-profile chief diversity officers, why are educated and highly qualified Black applicants still facing discrimination during the hiring process? Any
Because we
thoughts?
just still have work. Because we just still have work to do, right? I
Time,
mean,
right?
this is certainly our time. This is our time, and we need to be ready to meet the moment. And um, this time has come before, right? Like we have been in our moments. I would say that my mother was met. She was in a generation that met the moment. So I think these things are cyclical. We have to be ready for this moment, and the fight doesn't end. That's
Yeah.
that's just what it is. It's interesting that someone wants to talk about working around the name
Yeah, I
bias.
was just looking at that. Any thoughts on that? How do we work around the name bias?
I think if you find a company that isn't biased, you really just, I think we're at a time where people are starting to accept people for who they are, Black people for who they are, where companies are starting to go to the HBCUs to look for employees. And, we've turned a corner, I think, from 2019 to all the events that we had in 2020 till now. And I think, this is our moment. And yes, we definitely have more work to do, but I think that we're in a very good place. I explained to my daughter that all these commercials with Black people on it was not there when I was a kid. Like, I did not see all these Black people on TV we have now. And that's just one area. So, and especially with the laws that are coming out about hair discrimination, these are laws. You cannot, break the law. These companies cannot fire people or tell people that they're not presentable with braids. Like, that didn't exist back in the day. So these are things that are changing in our society that is allowing us to be who we are and not have to hide from it. So, if there's a company that is discriminating against your name, then maybe you don't want to work for that company, because if they're discriminating against your name, they may discriminate against you.
They will.
They will.
Right.
And that's
and that impacts our health.
Right. And Tiffany just made a good point. There's nothing that we can do about our names. There's nothing that we can do about our names. Our parents named us, but we can absolutely choose a company that accepts us. That's where we want to work. We want to work for a company that values us, that doesn't choose us based on our name. Sometimes it's hard to get there.
Can I just say also that we have to get past, though, this idea that there is something wrong with our being in a space because we are Black. That is a gift. And I say it plainly in the institution where I work. I say, like, make it clear, there is nothing magical about being in white space. Right? That is not a gift to us. And in fact, we are the gift. Like, we are offering a new perspective, a different perspective, a unique perspective that enhances their bottom line.
That's true.
So
yeah,
we've got to get away from thinking that there's something to be negated, like that we have to negate our Blackness and our Black experience in order to fit in. We are the gift. We just have to make sure they hear it and understand it.
Yeah. And this is the era of being unapologetic, for sure. Right. Absolutely. Ivory, something that you said about us turning the corner. I agree with you. I do think we've turned a corner. I still am a little, I don't know what the word is, suspicious of companies that, all of a sudden have jumped on the, diversity bandwagon, the anti-racism bandwagon. I think the jury is still out. I do. We have turned a corner, and we do need to seize this. We need to really make it a continuing movement. I think time is going to tell whether some of these companies that got onto the bandwagon really meant what they said, or whether they were just,
honestly, I don't think
part
they're
of the
ready.
Crowd.
I don't think they're ready.
Right.
Think they're ready. I think they may be opening a door that they are not ready for, but they need to get ready, because when they see how valuable we are, just like, for example, the basketball players during the whole, I'll say the whole summer last year, when they put their foot down and said, this is what we want, and we want it now. I started seeing shirts that had positive words on it for the basketball team. I saw donations going out. I saw, stadium shut down for voter voting, and voter registration was happening with, different Black celebrities. These are the things that we have to demand. It's there's a way to demand things in a nice way.
Right.
So I had this whole conversation about the fact that I was pissed off I had to work on Martin Luther King Day. And, you know, the reason I was given that I shouldn't be mad is because we were given Juneteenth.
Oh.
So I shouldn't be mad because we got Juneteenth.
Okay. How about having both?
That was my follow-up. And I said it very kindly. I was so kind in my statement that you would have thought that I was giving compliments, but I clearly stated that why wasn't it exchange? Why wasn't it both? And in my mind, because I don't know, because I'm from New Jersey and we celebrated everything in Bergen County. So, you know, we had the Jewish holidays, we had, you know, all the holidays. And it just did not even dawn on me that I did not have Martin Luther King Day off. And if I knew the week before, I would have taken off. But it was almost like I woke up and was like, wait, I have to work today?
Right.
I didn't even, it was just totally unexpected.
Conversely, there was breakfast to get to on that day. So there is a breakfast and a parade.
I know, everything.
Conversely, do you want to take Columbus Day off? And
Me?
President's Day?
I don't believe in Columbus Day. Is that a day?
That's Indigenous People Day.
Right. Yeah.
So
First Nations Day. Right.
Exactly right. Exactly right. I've seen mention of the Crown Act. Are you familiar with the Crown Act? I believe it's in 7 states with regard to our hair. The companies cannot discriminate against you because of your hair, your hairstyle, or whatever. It needs to be in more states. I mean, this is something that we can definitely wrap our arms around and support. So I encourage you all to look up the Crown Act and to learn more about that. Someone asked, can you discuss if you took a salary cut when you relaunched?
I did.
I did. I mean, but here's the thing.
Major.
Yeah, I mean, how do you calculate the time that you were out and the value of what you did when you were out and add it to what you made before to where you should be? You know, there's like a whole bunch of calculation that you need to do. It's just my gut, and I'm sure yours told you that you were way below where you should have been. Talk to us about that, taking that cut.
That it was painful, you know, but I really just wanted to work. And that whole analogy you gave about just get the boat in the water. So one thing, I just refused to work in Florida because they're one of the lowest paying districts or states for teachers. So they're working on it. They're trying to raise the salary across the state. But right now it is, and I think they may have passed it, but when I started looking, I just couldn't. I was just like, I cannot. I worked too hard to make the money that I made in New Jersey. And I know New Jersey has a totally different, you know, financial setup, but I took my salary was cut in half.
Wow.
Yeah.
But you know what? You got the boat in the water.
I got the boat in the water. So now I have room to negotiate.
Right. Right.
And I will say I had the fortune because I had the space while I was mommying. I had the fortune of working, doing work that I just love, which does not mean that I don't expect to be paid for it. But what it does is that the extra work that I put in, I do feel like I'm being rewarded for it, because I'm being rewarded for it even financially outside of the workplace as well.
Right.
And that has been just a function of passion.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in many ways, that's the goal, to get back to work that you love. And, you know, for that to be the first thing that's most important, and the money to be secondary. And there's a book years ago that I read. It's called Do What You Love, the Money Will Follow.
Mhm.
You know, in many ways, when you do what you love and you're most passionate about it and you become an expert in that thing because you're so
Right.
passionate about it, guess what? The money will follow.
Right. And
I'm
so I am
banking on
called
that.
upon outside of my workplace to do the work that I do in the workplace.
Yeah.
I'm definitely banking on
I was
that
just,
because I do what I love. I definitely do what I love. So I'm waiting for the money to follow.
It'll come. It'll come. That's great. Kim, you were going to say?
yeah, no, I was just gonna say, I did start out like where I had left off, but I had been out for 4 years and also the other gap. So like I just kept thinking about how much I could have made. And then
Yes.
also too, I had already felt like I was being underpaid where I was before, you know? So yes, I got back in right where I was, but I still felt as, you know, I had missed out on some potential earnings.
Yeah. And it's not even just a pay cut. Sometimes it's a level cut. I mean, I thought long and hard whether I was going to apply for the job that I have in television because the job listing said 3 years of experience. I have 30 years of experience. So, you know, I didn't see that zero there. I saw the 3 and I almost didn't apply. But then I realized that the benefit of applying and getting that position and getting in and being active and, you know, kind of getting back into the field that I love was more important. And so,
Right.
yeah, in the back of my head, I do remember that 3, but it's okay. It's okay. Ladies, it is 10:26. We could go on, but I cannot tell you how many more questions. I cannot tell you how many more questions, quite a few. So I think at this point, what we're going to do is we are going to put together some kind of Q&A to share with everybody with answers to the questions that were submitted. Also, I believe we're going to be sharing this recording and the information in the chat, because let me tell you, the chat is on fire. We're trying to talk and I'm seeing the chat on the right-hand side, and there's a lot of great discussion and a lot of great resources being shared in the chat. So we're going to share that also. And who knows, this has been a great discussion. It's been a wonderful discussion. I would love to figure out a part 2. We can keep this conversation going. We don't have to just talk about work. We can keep this conversation going from our perspective. And I want to thank everybody who joined. I know it's late. I know it's bedtime for some. Some of us who are stay up late. It's the night's just getting rolling. But thank you so much for joining us, Kim, Ivory, Danae. It's been a pleasure to chat with you. I hope that those of you all who are on got something out of this, listen to our stories, listen to some of the answers to your questions, and I hope it was helpful. I hope it supports you in some way. And I just want to close by thanking my Mocha Moms National Board. You all are wonderful, hardworking. Thank you, Shalon, for helping to put this together. Thank you to the iRelaunch team, to Carol, to Shannon. This has been wonderful. It's been a wonderful event. We look forward to partnering together. We hope to be bringing you more information from iRelaunch. They are connected to many, many companies, companies that are interested in speaking to you and sharing with you information about their return to work programs and getting you into the pipeline. So for those companies who say they're interested, let's hold their feet to the fire. Let's give them some names. Let's share some resumes. Let's make sure we get that information to them for those of you who are interested in going back to work. And finally, I just want to say, I want to get back to that sisterhood conversation that we were having, because our sisterhood is very powerful. I don't think we understand how powerful it is. When we lift each other up, when we lift each other up, we become stronger collectively and individually. And so I don't want any of us to forget that. we need to continue lifting each other up and sharing with each other and talking about these burdens that we carry, because we can help lessen that burden. We can help lift that burden for many of us, just by listening, just by talking, just by providing a shoulder. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for joining. We love you. We love you. This chat is really wonderful. This has been great. Ladies, it's such a pleasure. Thank you so much. We're going to sign off now,
Thank
and
you.
we hope to see you all soon. Bye.
Good night, everyone.